So tell me, let's say, on the other part of this, what's the hardest part of your job right now that someone outside transportation and logistics probably would not appreciate?
I would say, I think the trucking is constant. I think people in the back of their minds know that. I don't think you realize how constant it is. It is ever moving. It is all night. It is all weekend. So our dispatchers, our operations team, they have, a standard 9 to 5, 8 to 5, but if something happens overnight, they have to take care of that. So I think that's what's underappreciated in the industry. And even the truckers, the drivers themselves, I think we see them on the road and we see them constantly moving, but we don't always realize the hours that they're putting in just to deliver the things that we need every day. So I think that's what's underappreciated, I'd say.
Welcome to Digital Leaders Club. I am Guillaume Duchesneau, founder and CEO at Ingeno. This show is built for leaders running real-world operations. And today, that means the people who keep things moving across networks that most of us never see. I'm joined by Marissa Thomas, Vice President of Finance at OnLine Transport. Marissa, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good morning.
All right. Marissa, before we get into more operational stuff, tell me, how did you end up in transportation and logistics? Because almost nobody who's in this industry plans to get into it. It kind of pulls people in.
Yes, I would agree with that. I think even once you're in it, you end up staying in it. So yeah, I've been with OnLine for 7 years now. Prior to that, fresh out of college, I had worked for Clips Group Inc., which is a premium auto speaker company based here in Indianapolis. So yeah, and I've lived in Indianapolis my whole life. Went to high school here, went to college here, and then the opportunity just kind of presented itself a couple years after graduating college, and I've been here ever since. I think logistics and transportation is a good fit for me personally. It clicks pretty well for me, pretty straightforward. So I do enjoy it. I know it's not for everyone, but it works for me. So yeah, I've been here for 7 years. I actually just had my anniversary last month. So
All right. So tell me about the operation. So what does online transport actually do? The network, the customers, the scale. So tell me about it.
yeah, so we do have two separate operating aspects, I would say. So we do asset-based freight and brokerage freight. And then within both of those umbrellas, there are multiple divisions. So under our asset umbrella, we actually have 12 different terminals, I believe, all over the Midwest, and as far west as El Paso, Texas. So yeah, we're moving any kind of freight really, from truck parts to paper to daily normal home goods. We're transporting everything. Same thing on the brokerage side, which we have a few different divisions there too. That's just not being run by our internal drivers. We just broker that freight out externally.
Got it. And tell me, what's your typical week? What does it look like for you personally? I don't want the LinkedIn version, right? Just
Yeah.
when you spend your days actually.
It definitely depends on the week. And that's kind of one thing in the trucking industry. You end up wearing multiple hats. So I can do anything from coordinating a company event to truly doing our finance work. So we have the one thing that differs in our financial reporting, I would say, is that we have a 13 period close, which is different from a standard 12-month calendar close. So we are actually closing our financials every 4 weeks, which differs from a lot of companies. Most companies are doing it just monthly. So really about a week and a half of every single month, we're truly doing our journal entries and reconciling and reviewing our financials. In a standard week for me, I oversee payroll, accounts payable, accounting. I assist with our fleet compliance. So on any given day, I'm getting a question from any of those different aspects or assisting with any of those different aspects. So it definitely depends on the week. But I think to try to give a true day in the life is hard because it just always varies. But yeah, I'm doing kind of anything in those aspects. And yeah.
Right. And tell me, Marissa, what's the part of your operation you're most satisfied with right now? Something your team has figured out, something that your team has built that's actually working the way it should?
Yeah, I'd say the past couple years, we've automated two large pieces that were data entry that we've now automated. So our cash application, which is funds that we receive and then applying them to the corresponding invoices, we automated that almost exactly a year ago, which has significantly cut down on manual data entry and saved time. And then in line with that as well, we automated using some AI technology, the review of our carrier paperwork. So the brokerage freight that I mentioned, those carriers submit the paperwork into us, and then obviously we review the paperwork, we make sure we're paying the correct person the correct amount, and we've incorporated some AI technology to do that for us. So it went from us reviewing about 1,500 loads a week manually to now we're only having to look at about 80 loads a week. So it has significantly cut down on the time to do that from really a full day to 2 days it was taking to do that, and now we're able to do the full carrier AP process in a little under 4 hours. So it was a big win. Both of those were both definitely big wins, especially when we were short-staffed at the time. So we're in a good place in general on the accounting side, definitely in a good place.
Nice. And would you say, aside from saving time, did it also, let's say, improve quality, less errors?
hmm Yeah, I
Yeah.
would agree with that. Yeah, any human looking at 1,500 loads in a day, your eyes
Will
are
make
gonna be
errors.
tired. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna make errors, you're gonna miss things. So it helps with that for sure, and it allows us to do more of true accounting work and true analysis of financials and payables versus manual data entry. So.
Right. Your team can play at a more strategic and tactical level
hmm
rather than, let's say, yeah, data entry, which is low value task for a human. So tell me, let's say, on the other part of this, what's the hardest part of your job right now that someone outside transportation and logistics probably would not appreciate?
I would say I think the trucking is constant. I think people in the back of their minds know that. I don't think you realize how constant it is. It is ever moving, it is all night, it is all weekend.
Mm.
So our dispatchers, our operations team, they yeah, they have, a standard 9 to 5, 8 to 5, but if something happens overnight, they have to take care of that. So, I think that's what's underappreciated in the industry, and even the truckers, the drivers themselves. I think, we see them on the road and we see them constantly moving, but we don't always realize the hours that they're putting in just to deliver the things that we need every day. So, I think that's what's underappreciated, I'd say.
I like that. So about that 24/7 kind of operation. So you say everything is moving all the time, right?
Mhm.
How do you get visibility across your fleet, your drivers, all the data about that, and how does it influences or impact your practice for the financial part of your
So
organization? Yeah.
we do use some ELD, so that's electronic logging devices. So
Mhm.
every one of our trucks have those, so they're logging all of those miles, all of those hours, all of those routes, which feeds back to the operations team so they can track and manage and make sure everything's on schedule. Even on the safety side, it allows visibility into weather in certain areas or accidents in certain areas. So that feeds back to those teams. And then on our side, on the finance side, that real time access to the mileage is helpful for us on the back end, specifically with certain tax reporting. IFTA reporting, filing our fuel tax, we have to use the real mileage. So having access to that data is what benefits us most on the finance side. We obviously have, bird's eye view of the routes. We're not in the ins and outs of the routes that are being ran. But when it comes to actually analyzing those on a higher level, having that access to that real data is very beneficial.
So tell me, what happens if a major customer calls you and say, "Hey, where's shipment 4419? When is it going to arrive? We're waiting for that." How do
Mhm.
you address that kind of request?
I'd say so in most instances that question is directed to our CSR, so our customer service representative internally, who then essentially fields that request and then gets in touch with the dispatcher or the driver manager, who can then pull that up in the ELD tracking. And if there's confusion as to, why the driver's behind or why he's just sitting, we actually can pull up real-time image of what the driver is seeing, because the camera in the truck faces externally. So we can see what's in front of the driver, and, maybe they're in standstill traffic, maybe there was an accident. But then beyond that, I'd give our operations team a lot of credit that they keep in constant contact with our drivers. So if there is confusion as to why they're behind or why they're sitting, they'll give the driver a call and see what's going on. So I think it's very hands-on in all aspects, I would say.
I like that you do have real-time visibility on each driver's position, I guess, also GPS and kind of stuff, right? And also even a visual view of what the truck is looking at. So how did, let's say, implementing that part changed how you serve your customers? Because if you didn't have that before, I guess truckers had to log manually somehow, right?
Yeah.
And you didn't have maybe GPS locations, and you had maybe CBs, right?
Yeah.
Radios. So how did that kind of technology change the way you serve your customer and you run the business?
Yeah, I'd say luckily for me, I was not around during that
Okay.
time, because I can anticipate the challenges that came with that
Yeah.
100%. But yeah, so in my 7 years here, we've always had the ELDs. And I believe they maybe had a previous version a couple of years before that. So definitely within the last 10 years, that's been the norm in the trucking industry, I think I'd say. But yeah, luckily we do have those tools, because I couldn't imagine, even you wouldn't just calling the driver, and depending on what GPS they're using, even that's different, because there's specific truck routes. So you can't just use standard Google or standard Apple Maps. You have to actually use the certain tools, so you're going on the correct roads and the correct routes. So I am very lucky that I did not have to endure that.
Right. Oh, let's say about that fleet data that you guys are collecting in real time. Are there any other ways you leverage this data to improve over time? For example, okay, we had these routes, it worked, but this happened, or I don't know, at that time of the day, this route is really jammed, for example. And are you able to learn from this data right now? Are your solutions or software that you use, are they helping you on that part?
Yeah, 100%. They definitely provide us even our out of route miles. So if there was a standard route provided, and then for whatever reason the driver had to go a different route than that, additional mileage, you don't want to have additional mileage. You want to make sure you're getting from A to B the most efficiently, quickest way possible. So it allows us to analyze that and see what's going on there. Why was this driver routed a different way? It allows us to review our fuel consumption. It can give us indicators of, maybe something's wrong with that specific truck because they're using way too much fuel. So there's a lot of different aspects built into that ELD device that we can use to analyze and continue to improve our operations.
And does that include, let's say, optimizing how much or how, let me phrase that correctly, is that, let's say, the empty mile question, right? So when a truck is empty, going to a location to get new stuff to load it, how do you optimize and minimize, I would say, these miles, right? Are your tools helping you on that front? What do you see? How do you see this from your financial perspective?
Yeah, from the finance side, I think there's room for more tools to better help us in that space of ensuring we're trying to reduce and have as little of empty miles as possible. But empty miles are inevitable. So it's just kind of almost trying to offset those in any way that you can. And I think there's opportunities for other tools to be used, but I think overall the team manages it as best as they can.
Can you give examples of those opportunities? What would you see could be done, for example?
I've heard there's various tools out there. I mean, we've had conversations with a few external companies that do provide further deeper route analysis, but a lot of the times you're going to get empty miles because you had a load delivering, but you don't have a load back. So it's kind of figuring out how to best navigate load boards and ensure we have our dedicated freight between all of our drivers so that they do have a way there and a way back.
Makes sense. Makes sense. On the warehouse side, labor, productivity, picking, optimization, how much of that is data driven right now in your operation versus driven by supervisor experience?
So we actually don't do any warehousing
Okay.
at all. Yeah. So we are strictly just providing services to move the freight.
Okay. So doesn't apply to
Yeah.
you.
So we
Okay.
don't have to deal with it.
All right. All right. Tell me, so AI is hitting the planet by storm for just a
Mhm.
few years now. That probably brings, let's say, new expectations from your customers. Can you expand on what kind of expectations your customer might have now that they know AI exists and they know technology can be leveraged? Do you hear about that?
I personally have not. I don't know if maybe our VP of operations has been asked of anything in that regard. I know there's automations that other or AI technology that other trucking companies have used. Just as simple as kind of like, I hate to say it, but like AI dispatchers is kind of what I've heard some trucking
Hmm.
companies use. And it's as simple as basically the driver will drop a trailer at a door. They put it in this kind of text system and then it tells them a new trailer to pick up and then they're kind of on their way. So I know that exists. I don't expect that to be the norm for quite a while, but I don't think that's anything that we're getting any pressure from many of our customers on.
Okay. Do you have any customers that ask for real time telemetry? I want to know exactly where's your truck because it's super important for me. Do you have that kind of request?
Probably. I don't know. I'm not in the weeds per se in those kind of conversations. We do have EDI tracking. There actually is one of our customers I do know specifically because our IT team had to create something because they were asking for more real time tracking of it was reefer products. So they're kept in a temperature controlled trailer and they were asking for more real time tracking of that. So we actually
Mhm.
created something internally for that. But beyond that, I don't know that there's huge pressure because I think most of the time it's, again, I'm not on the operations side. This is kind of my perspective from the finance side. I think most of the time here's your delivery window. And if you're there within that delivery window, great. If it's late, where's the proactive communication that it's going to be late? I think
Mhm.
is kind of more of the expectation or
So
standard.
if it happens, it's more about your customer wanting to be compliant for temperature stability in the load, right? And
Yeah.
in the trailer. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, for that specific one, it's yeah, making sure the temperature stays at where it's supposed to be, but then also I think tracking where exactly it is and when it's going to be at delivery as well.
All right. About labor. So I hear driver turnover is high. I've heard, let's say, big numbers like 80, even 100%
Hmm.
turnover every year. How do you guys experience that? How do you mitigate that? Because I guess that there's good senior drivers with experience and that changes the quality of your delivery and the punctuality of the delivery, right? That kind of
Hmm.
stuff. So yeah, what's your experience based around that?
Yeah, the trucking industry it is definitely a high turnover. I think we try to reduce that as much as possible. We try to I mean, we have a driver first mentality, so we want to ensure our drivers are happy.
Hmm.
And however we can do that, we try to. Inevitably, there's going to be drivers that do leave. I'm pretty sure I did check. It was at one point last year what our average tenure for our drivers was, and I'm pretty sure it was about a decade. So there is a lot of turnover, but we are keeping drivers for a long time. I mean, we have one driver
Nice.
who he's literally been driving his 40th anniversary was this year. So we definitely, yeah, it is unfortunate downside of the industry, but we do try to keep our drivers happy.
Can you tell me and our listeners what you've seen work to help on that? So how do you make your drivers happy?
I think it can be as little as simple things, if they're sitting at a shipper or at a delivery location and they're having to sit for an extended period of time, just ensuring that they are getting paid for that time and ensuring that they're getting paid kind of what they expect. Inevitably in any industry there's going to be unrealistic expectations but I think as long as we're providing those fair wages to our drivers and making sure we're trying to even do the simple things because I think a lot of the time a small thing can go a long way in ensuring that we're even checking in with our drivers. I think it's in September is, truck driver appreciation week. So we get every driver a hat, a shirt, we
Mhm.
provide we make sure we have our higher level execs call a certain number of drivers and just check in and have a conversation with them. And in my opinion, I'd like to do that kind of more throughout the year than just truck driver appreciation week, which is something on a side note company initiative plan slightly working on. But yeah, and beyond, I mean, we try to also recognize these drivers for their achievements. So we give plaques out for, I believe, once you reach 5 years, we give plaques for that recognition, and then in 5 year increments. And there's a tier system as well. So beyond a plaque, there's opportunity to get a ring, kind of like a class ring, jackets. So trying to do recognition of that sorts, and we do various internal competitions of sorts to kind of boost morale and get those drivers some additional like gift cards and incentives.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Do you see, do you feel your drivers are, let's say, spending a bit too much time because of technology friction? So maybe not all of them are, let's say, comfortable with technology. Sometimes not everyone is comfortable with technology. So all the tools that you give to them, the ELDs, some apps maybe they have to log into with their phones. Yeah. How is technology being, how does it add or remove frictions?
I think initially when a lot of the newer technology came out, there was probably a lot of friction and a lot of tension. But at this point, I think it's really the norm. I think all truckers, all drivers at this point, I think, have the understanding that if I'm driving, I'm going to have an electronic device in my truck. So I know there was initial tension and friction when these new devices came out, but ultimately it also, from my perspective as someone who did, grow up pretty much my entire life with technology,
Mhm.
I think it does make things easier for the driver because they don't have to log their hours and their routes, on paper. It's doing it for them. So they
Yeah,
kind
that
of get,
removes friction. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think they're able to truly drive. They're able to truly do their job without having to worry about logging their mileage.
Makes sense. All right. So, Marissa, if you could fix one thing about how your operation runs right now, and one thing that technology could change and improve, something that's been on your list for a long time or on the organization list, but keeps getting pushed, what would it be?
That's a tough one. We're pretty automated. So
Nice.
there's definitely things on the finance side I'm still working through improving and automating, but in terms of operations, I guess one thing that comes to mind is probably more EDI opportunities. So that's essentially where the load in the customer system comes through to our system directly.
Hmm.
We have a couple of our larger customers set up that way, but there are opportunities, I think, with some others. But that's ultimately up to the customer. There's only so much that we can push for
Yeah.
that or ask for
So,
that.
you're talking about integrating your customer systems with yours so that there's no manual work on either side to kind of
Mhm.
synchronize data about,
Yeah,
let's say, the shipments. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
And on the finance side, you say maybe you're seeing a few things. Can you give some examples?
Yeah, I still have some items to work through, so I'm I've got a couple requests out to our IT team, which I'll say they're amazing. Anything that I come up with, they are able to create. So there's our some AP automation with it's essentially, our auto payments that hit our bank account.
Hmm.
Right now, we're still manually entering those in our system. So vouchering the invoice and entering the payment, there's definitely room to automate that. And then as simple as, when we're receiving paperwork from external carriers, right now we're having to manually upload those into our system. So using some more AI technology to kind of read those documents and upload those
Hmm.
into our system automatically. Those are two things I'm working on right now.
Nice. And what's the rationale for you and your organization to decide I'm going to buy a solution that already exists versus I'm going to build a solution that's exactly what I need, right? I don't have to compromise on the
Mhm.
features. What's the rationale here?
I think we are more on the side of building it ourselves because our IT team is so great and we have an intranet that our IT team must create, which is integrated with our ELD devices and our TMS software and our accounting software. So because we already have a lot of that foundation built internally, it allows for a lot of creation. So I'd say that's more of the rationale with we choose to try to build it internally if we can. But with an IT team of 3 people, there's only so much they can do, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah. But I guess
there
that's so much thing they can do is increasing as the AI is getting better
yeah.
at helping them, right?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're doing more than they were doing a few years ago,
Yeah,
right?
I just know with, I have a lot of ideas and a lot of improvements, and I know that there are at least a handful of other people who also have ideas and areas of improvement in their specific fields of the company as well. So I know our IT team gets asked to do a lot. So
And they
yeah.
can keep up from what I hear you saying.
Yeah. Mhm.
Nice,
Yep.
nice. All right, Marissa, can you see what's the or share what's the biggest opportunity for transportation and logistics operators to compete differently in the next 3, 5 years? A big step, a big change that's coming in your industry.
I'd have to think about that a little bit.
So one thing I hear about, but maybe it's still science fiction, is automated trucks, like or
Oh yeah.
unsupervised truck driving. I don't know the right way to frame that, but yeah, is that something that's a year away or like no, it's like more 20 years. We're not there yet.
In my opinion, we are nowhere near
Okay.
that.
What's
There definitely
missing, you think?
are. Yeah, I there are trucks with those capabilities in production. I just think I mean, the self-driving Teslas came out in the last few years, maybe the last couple
Hmm.
years. I'm not sure specifically on that timeline. And I don't think there's enough data on that yet for then trucks to be
Hmm.
driving themselves. I think with the electric vehicles, those are becoming a little more mainstream, but
Hmm.
with freight, an electric vehicle is only going to go so far. So if you're truly running over the road, that's not feasible.
Because of
So
the
for
time
me,
to recharge, you mean?
yeah, I think even
Okay.
just, I don't know how long an electric truck stays charged.
Hmm.
I can't envision it's thousands of miles. So
Yeah,
you're
probably
not getting
not.
far, yeah, before you have to stop and charge, which is not that's not efficient.
Mm.
So and I don't see much change in the trucking industry in the next few years, just in terms of, like, true trucking fundamentals. Because if I think 5 years back, really not much has changed. Like, yes, there are electric vehicles now. Yes, there's better tracking of your trucks plus, tracking of your freight, but the true trucking basics haven't really changed in the last few years. So
Let me ask you the question from another angle. I just want to dig further here. So
mhm,
let's say, what would it take, in your opinion, to be able to support, let's say, 5 times as much transports drivers,
mhm.
but with the same operations team? What would it take to have that, in your opinion?
It would definitely take more probably AI technology, kind of what I mentioned with what some trucking companies, larger scale, like,
Hmm.
trucking companies have been doing with kind of those automated systems of dropping a trailer and picking up another. There would definitely need to be some assistance in that regard.
So some, let's say, physical AI, right, where the AI can actually do some of the physical work. Is that what you're saying, or just to be sure I understand?
You mean physically sorry, I took it more on, like, the back office side.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah,
Misunderstood.
to truly move more of that freight, you need more drivers,
Humans.
and if we
Yeah.
can't hire more drivers, then there would have to be some other way to transport that freight.
Right, right, right. Okay, no. So you were talking more about back office and all the work that is done by humans on the back office to arrange the data about,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that would be something to optimize and automate more.
Yeah, because a safe ratio of, drivers to dispatcher is 20-ish, depending on the freight being ran. So, if then you're putting 40 to 50 drivers per dispatcher, that's it's just too much for one dispatcher. So if we couldn't hire more back office staff, there'd have to be some other sort of technology implemented to assist with that.
What's missing for, let's say, fully AI driven dispatching?
I think
I have tricky
it's
questions.
just
Huh?
new. Yeah. Things I haven't really thought too much in depth of. It's just newer.
Hmm.
So I think we're not fully there yet
Hmm.
as an industry. I think there's still the mindset of wanting to provide jobs. So incorporating more AI technology kind of it reduces that. So I think that's
Yeah, unless from my question a few moments ago, unless you want to increase your, let's say, customer base and number of transports you make with the
mhm,
same people. So most of the time, what I say is technology and AI is there to augment people, not replace them, right?
mhm,
Because there's always an expectation that I'll be able to do more with technology, and
yeah.
that's what I see in my organization, and that's why I asked this question from that angle, right?
Yeah, I agree. I just think overall there is a lot of fear surrounding AI
Mm.
with the mindset of, could my job be done by AI? So I think
Yeah, I have
that's a
that fear
huge
too
fear. Yeah.
myself.
I think we all do. We all want to make sure we're setting ourselves apart.
Yeah, yeah. Marissa, let's say for another logistics leader who's looking and watching this, using technology like you do, you say it's pretty much the default in your industry, but let's say for someone that's not there yet, what would you tell them where to start? What would be your honest advice for those?
I'd speak specifically on the finance side.
Hmm.
A thorough review of the current processes and thinking through the different options of how they could be done to reduce human error, to save time. Simplest to implement to start are typically cash application or automating AP processes. So I'd say from an accounting standpoint that way, but also a huge thing I think in the trucking industry still because of the requirement of paperwork, trying to reduce that as much as possible so that, if there are instances where certain documents don't actually need to be printed for the driver, maybe we have those available electronically somehow.
Hmm.
I think just in general, reducing paper usage. I from our standpoint on our finance side, we are basically 100% electronic. So that's kind of a good starting point for most finance or accounting departments is how can we minimize paper usage?
Hmm.
And then continue to implement automations. I think that's where I recommend to start.
Nice, nice. I like that. All right, Marissa, we're almost at time to finish. Just a quick lightning round of questions for you. So no overthinking, just whatever comes to mind. That's
Okay.
fine. And if you don't know, we'll just say you have the right to say pass,
Okay.
or if you're not sure. So, what would you say is the most overrated thing in logistics technology right now?
First one, I'm like, overrated. I'll pass.
All right. Many people say for this one, AI in general, because there's so much buzz around AI,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
I use it daily though, so it's hard for me to say it's overrated.
Yeah. It works, right? It helps
Yeah.
a lot. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The one system in your operation you could not run without.
Not system, but Excel. I live and breathe Excel. I do everything in Excel. If I did not have Excel, I would be significantly slower at my job.
All right. Best operations or logistics team that you've ever seen. And what made them stand out in your opinion?
I'll pass.
Okay. What do great logistics operators do that average ones don't?
I'd say getting their hands dirty, jumping in and assisting with whatever is needed versus just kind of leaving it for, as a leader, you're going to get asked for help. So if that person's coming to you for help, get in there and help them versus just kind of telling them to figure it out. So I think getting in there and getting your hands dirty.
The next one you cannot pass. I warn you.
Okay.
If you were not in transportation or finance, what would you be doing?
I would honestly not be opposed to being a stay-at-home mom.
Nice.
Yeah,
That's a great answer actually.
yeah, a specific industry that I would prefer to be in, I don't know, but yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to being a stay-at-home mom.
I love that. How many kids do you have?
I actually don't have any yet, so that's
Not
why
yet.
it's kind of
Okay. So
funny.
maybe in the future. It's
Oh,
a heads
I
up to your
don't.
employer you're giving right now, no?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. All right. And finally, maybe where can our listeners find or follow what you guys are doing or building?
Yeah. So our website is www.onlinetransport.com. We have Facebook presence, LinkedIn presence. So if you search Online Transport Inc. based in Greenfield, Indiana, should be able to find us.
Right. Marissa, this has been a genuinely great conversation. Thank you so much. We appreciated how specific and honest you were about what's happening inside your operation. And this is exactly what this show is for. So thanks to all our listeners for listening to Digital Leaders Club. If you are a transportation or logistics leader, just like Marissa, dealing with any of the things we've discussed today, I'd love to continue this conversation with you. So you can find us at ingeno.ca. And until next time, Marissa, thanks again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.